They called her She-Hulk, like it was a joke, never knowing the power in her bloodline could level them all. If someone said your legacy was a secret, would you go find it or run from it? For Sarah, every whisper, every laugh, every sideways glance led her here, to this exact moment of quiet, undeniable victory. She didn't ask for strength, she earned it. And the truth is, the world was never ready for a girl like her. Just when it tried to erase her, a letter arrived, sealed with two simple initials that changed everything. Because in the end, she wasn't the villain in their story. She was the revelation no one saw coming. In the quiet outskirts of Maple Ridge, a foggy little town tucked deep in rural Washington, Sarah Nichols walked the cracked pavement to school with her backpack slung over one shoulder, and the weight of a world that never understood her on the other. She wasn't your average high school girl. Not in this town. Her frame was built from steel, not the decorative kind. Her arms bore years of discipline, early mornings and raw calluses. Her shoulders curved like a statue carved from granite. And her calves? They carried the echoes of thousands of lunges and squats. But to her classmates, Sarah's body wasn't a symbol of strength. It was ammunition. Whispers trailed behind her like smoke in a windless alley. Does she eat dumbbells for breakfast? I bet her handshake crushes bones. She's like half-man. Every hallway became a battlefield. Every classroom is a war zone of sideways glances and giggled commentary. And the volleyball court? That was the front line. Girls on her team didn't pass the ball. They passed the blame. She's too intense. She hogs the net. No wonder we lose. She's a one-woman show. But the truth was quieter than the gossip. Sarah worked harder than anyone on that team. Every spike was a calculated strike. Every dive, a sacrifice. They didn't see the effort. They only saw the muscles. After school, while others chased boys and gossip, Sarah walked alone to a forgotten building just off Main Street. A dimly lit warehouse turned training facility, plastered with peeling posters from the early 2000s. The old gym smelled of rust, sweat, and stories no one talked about anymore. A place too gritty for most, but perfect for her. She trained in silence. No music, no cheers. Just the slap of jump ropes against rubber floors, and the hum of her breath syncing with the iron. And inside her faded green gym bag, tucked beneath a rolled wrap and cracked water bottle, lay a photo, creased at the edges, faded from age. It was a snapshot of a man in the ring, bare-chested, fists raised. Muscles were exploding through his skin like they were trying to escape. His face was half-turned, caught mid-yell, as if frozen in a roar. Sarah didn't know his name. Not really. Her mother never said. Only told her once. He was strong. Strong like you. It was the only clue she had ever been given. A symbol. A mystery. And though she'd never say it aloud, sometimes she stared at that photo before bed, like it held the secret to everything wrong and everything right about her life. Her classmates saw her body as a curse. Her coach saw it as inconvenient. But deep down, Sarah held on to a different belief. A belief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't a mistake. That maybe this strength came from somewhere. Someone. At school, the volleyball team ran drills under the flickering gym lights. Sarah's spikes echoed like thunder, but instead of praise, she caught eye rolls. One girl whispered to another, then burst out laughing. Another mimed flexing like a bodybuilder as Sarah walked past, and the coach. The coach said nothing. To them, she was a problem. They couldn't bench, but she didn't want to play. The irony? Sarah's stats kept the team in first place for the district, but no one remembered the saves, the dives, the points. They only remembered her body and how it made them feel small. She showered quickly after practice, towel wrapped tight like armor. Laughter echoed from the locker room corner. She didn't need to hear it to know it was about her. The phone camera flashes made sure of that. Another TikTok is waiting to be posted. Another day she'd have to explain why her existence seemed to offend people. But Sarah didn't cry. Not there. Not yet. Instead, she walked past the mirror, muscles reflecting under fluorescent lights, and clenched her jaw. She didn't choose this body. She earned it, and somewhere out there, someone else had that same body, same veins, same roar. The volleyball team might not want her. The boys might fear her, and her school might never understand her. But the iron understood her. The gym welcomed her. And the cracked photo in her bag? It whispered something louder. Then words. You were made for more. But while the court bruised her skin, the locker room bruised her spirit, and one betrayal was about to shatter her trust entirely. Sarah's power didn't just spike balls. It rattled egos. On the court, she was a storm in motion. Her vertical jumps drew gasps. Her serves? Unreturnable. Her hands, calloused and disciplined, moved like weapons crafted in fire. Maple Ridge High's volleyball team, once a middling group of suburban slackers, was suddenly feared. But strength, especially in the hands of a girl, was never just celebrated. Not in a town like this. To the coaches, she was both a blessing and a burden. To her teammates, she was a threat. And to Peter. Peter was beginning to wish she weren't his girlfriend. At all. At first, Peter admired her. That's how it started. They'd met in weight training class, back when Sarah still tried to hide her strength, masking power behind oversized sweatshirts and downturned eyes. Peter had helped her re-rack a barbell once. She had let him. Maybe she wanted to feel smaller, just for a second. But things changed fast. Sarah no longer needed help. She could deadlift more than most boys in school. And the more she grew, the more Peter shrank, socially, emotionally, even physically. It wasn't her fault, but it was her presence. And in high school, presence alone could be a crime. Rumors started small. She probably wears the pants in the relationship. Bet she picks him up and carries him home. Honestly, I don't know if I'm more scared of her or jealous of him. Peter laughed along at first, but his smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. He began skipping practice when she trained, stopped liking her posts, stopped walking with her between classes. And Sarah noticed. At first, she blamed herself. Was she too much? Too intense? Too different? Meanwhile, the locker room venom spread. Like wildfire. The girls on her team didn't just talk, they documented. Secret videos started circulating online. Short clips, cropped, to show her lifting weights in isolation. The sound edited for mockery. One had over 10,000 views on TikTok. Caption: She-Hulk. Spotted at it again. Pray for Peter. And Peter? He didn't defend her. He liked the video. Left a laughing emoji. Sarah saw it. Every pixel, every comment, every like. It didn't break her muscles. It broke something deeper. The only person who didn't laugh was George. Coach George wasn't loud. He wasn't the head coach either, just the assistant. A former college athlete turned volunteer after an injury ended his own career. He was the type who observed more than he spoke. While the others gossiped, George watched her train. He saw the repetitions behind every move, the precision in her timing, the bruises no one else acknowledged. He noticed how she always volunteered to clean up the gym after hours, how she set the nets early, stayed late, never asked for praise. Sarah never looked his way. But George? He kept watching. Quiet support in a room full of noise. At practice, the tone shifted fast. One afternoon, coach announced they'd be running drills with scouts from another school watching. Sarah locked in, her focus sharpened like a blade. She played as if she were born on the court, like every mistake she'd ever made would be erased with one perfect dive. But no one clapped when she scored. Avery, the self-appointed queen of the team, whispered something as Sarah passed. Laughter followed. Even Peter, who'd stopped being her ride home, smirked from the sidelines. And as Sarah went for her water bottle, she saw it. Her locker, wide open. Her old gym photo crumpled in the corner. Someone had drawn over it. Cartoon horns, a beard, "Man, baby," scribbled in red ink. The cracked photo of her mystery father, the only clue to who she might really be, had been vandalized. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she picked up the photo, folded it back into her gym bag, and sat alone, on the edge of the bleachers as her team laughed behind her. George passed by. He didn't say anything. Just placed a towel beside her and walked away. In that small gesture, Sarah felt the weight of 100 unspoken apologies. But no towel could clean the kind of dirt she was buried under. After school, she skipped the gym, walked home under gray skies. The rain didn't fall, but the clouds carried a weight that matched her chest. Peter texted that night. Just a thumbs-up emoji on a group post about the upcoming match. No words, no concern. The message was clear. The world wasn't mocking her because she was weak. It was mocking her because she was powerful, and it didn't know what to do with that kind of power in a girl's hands. Sarah lay in bed that night, photo still folded on her desk. The man in the ring seemed to stare back through time, unbothered, fearless. She whispered to the dark, "Who were you?" But no answer came. Just silence, thick, heavy, familiar. Just when she needed a hand, the world pulled away. And what came next would shatter what little trust she had left. In that small gesture, Sarah felt the weight of 100 unspoken apologies. But no towel could clean the kind of dirt she was buried under. After school, she skipped the gym. Walked home under gray skies. The rain didn't fall, but the clouds carried a weight that matched her chest. Peter texted that night. Just a thumbs-up emoji on a group post about the upcoming match. No words, no concern. The message was clear. The world wasn't mocking her because she was weak. It was mocking her because she was powerful, and it didn't know what to do with that kind of power in a girl's hands. Sarah lay in bed that night, photo still folded on her desk. The man in the ring seemed to stare back through time, unbothered, fearless. She whispered to the dark, "Who were you?" But no answer came. Just silence, thick, heavy, familiar. Just when she needed a hand, the world pulled away, and what came next would shatter what little trust she had left. The viral fall. The gym floor never felt heavier than the day it turned into a stage. It started with a whisper. A joke passed around in giggles and smirks. A challenge meant to entertain, but crafted to humiliate. Sarah didn't know it at first. She thought it was harmless. She still believed people might cheer for strength, not mock it. She was wrong. It was Avery, the ringleader of cruelty, who planted the seed. "Who's stronger, Peter or Sarah?" she asked, loud enough to be overheard. The gym burst into laughter. Before the question was even answered, the crowd smelled blood. Peter was reluctant. But pride and peer pressure make foolish men out of boys, and Avery knew just how to push. She flirted, complimented his arms, told him he should defend his title as the man in the relationship. And Peter, his ego already fraying, agreed. Lift-off bench press. 10 reps. No redos. Everyone would watch. Sarah hesitated, but Peter insisted. He needed to prove something, not to her, but to himself. She nodded. She didn't want to embarrass him, but she didn't know she was walking into a trap set for her humiliation, not his. The gym gathered in a semicircle. Phones were already out. Peter went first. 1 rep, 2. By 5, his face was red. At 6, his arms shook. By 7, he tapped out, claiming a cramp. The room clapped politely. A few laughs bubbled up. Then it was Sarah's turn. She didn't show off, didn't gloat. She just lay back on the bench, eyes locked on the ceiling, and began lifting. 1, 2, 3. Her arms moved like pistons. 4, 5, 6. Not a single tremble. 7, 8, 9. By 10, she hadn't even broken a sweat. The gym fell, silent, then exploded in sound, mostly laughter. Someone shouted, "She-Hulk wins again!" And in that moment, the nickname became permanent. Peter stood there, face drained of blood, ego in pieces. He didn't say a word, just turned and walked out. Phones stayed raised, fingers typed fast. The first clip hit TikTok that night. A 10-second video, low resolution but high humiliation. The caption read, "She-Hulk crushes her own boyfriend, char alpha female Peter the pipsqueak." The soundbite was her breath, calm and steady over the whimper of metal, edited perfectly. Cruelly, it exploded, 1 million views in 24 hours. Sarah opened the app out of habit, then wished she hadn't. The comments were brutal. "She's gonna end up alone with her protein shakes." "No man wants to be the little spoon, bro." Got outbenched by his girl. RIP masculinity. She could probably bench press a cow, marry a tractor, even news outlets picked it up. High school Hulk smashes boyfriend in gym stunt. It made late-night punchlines. Comedy TikToks mimicked her walk, her voice, and her size. They called her The Rock's long-lost love child. And beneath it all, Peter stayed silent. He never defended her, never messaged her, never once said, "Enough." Even Coach Dennis, who once praised her work ethic, became cold. His praise turned to caution. His feedback, once specific, became distant and generic. "She needs to tone it down. She's not exactly a team player. Hard to market around someone so aggressive." Her teammates distanced themselves, not just emotionally, physically. In drills, they hesitated to high-five her. At lunch, they changed tables. In locker rooms, they whispered louder, bolder. Sarah felt the walls close in. She stopped going to parties, stopped going to town events. She walked different routes home just to avoid crowds. In the hallways, her muscles felt like armor, heavy, suffocating armor. The cracked photo in her gym bag became her only comfort. Every night she pulled it out. The man in the ring stared back, fierce and proud. She traced the tattoo on his arm. It felt familiar. Too familiar. But she couldn't place it. One afternoon she lingered after school. Her earbuds were in, but no music played. She just needed quiet. That's when she heard it. 2 teachers, talking just outside the weight room. One said, "She doesn't even know, does she?" The other responded, "No idea, but it's there. You can't miss it. The strength, the build, the face. She's got more power in her blood than she knows. If only she knew who her father was." Sarah's breath caught. She didn't turn around, didn't move. Their voices faded. But the words stuck. If only she knew. That night she stared at the photo longer than usual. Suddenly the tattoo on the man's arm, the tribal swirl, clicked. Her hand flew to her phone. She typed in a name she rarely allowed herself to think about, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. 100 photos loaded. Her heart raced. And there it was. The same tattoo, same placement, same eyes, same jawline. The image on the screen stared back at her like it knew a secret it had held for 17 years. She dropped the phone. Sat in silence. Could it be? Could he be? Her mother had never spoken about her father. Always dodged the question. Said he was gone. That was all. But now, this? It explained so much. The body, the strength, the shame, the secrecy. It wasn't just muscle. It was a legacy, and it wasn't just her team that didn't know who she really was. She didn't either. She wasn't a freak. She was forged. And someone had tried very hard to keep her truth hidden. She had been lifting the weight of the world with no idea that her bloodline once held it too, and now everything was about to change. In a town where secrets traveled faster than truth, Sarah sat alone in her room with a photograph that suddenly felt radioactive in her hands. For years, she'd carried it like a charm, folded, faded, tucked into her gym bag like a superstition. She never looked at it too closely. It hurt too much. That mystery man in the wrestling ring, frozen in mid-roar, had always represented what she didn't know. Where she came from, why she was different, why she was built differently. But now, everything had changed. The tattoo, that swirling, tribal, ink etched into the man's shoulder. It wasn't just decoration. It was identity. And it matched a man she'd grown up watching on posters and television commercials. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. At first, the thought felt ridiculous. Fantasy. Internet-driven delusion. But the more she stared at the photo, the less she could deny it. The eyes, the stance, the unmistakable jawline like carved granite. And the timeline? That's what sealed it. Her mom, Maria Nichols, had worked at a local fitness center during the late 90s, a tiny place on the outskirts of Maple Ridge, barely a dot on the map. Sarah remembered bits and pieces, her mom folding towels, music, playing from a dusty stereo, muscle-bound men training in the back. Once, she even remembered her mother pointing to the wall and whispering, "That man changed everything." She hadn't understood at the time, but now it echoed. Sarah needed more than a hunch. She needed proof. So the next morning she skipped school. Not out of rebellion, but necessity. She made her way to the Maple Ridge Community Gym, a shell of what it once was. The sign outside was cracked. The vending machine inside didn't work. But someone still kept the lights on, Coach Hal Renshaw, a relic of the past. A whistle was always around his neck. Cap was never removed. Rumor was that he used to train pros. Nobody really believed it. Sarah walked in, her heart pounding in her throat. Coach Hal was behind the desk, reading a sports magazine from 2004. She didn't waste time. She handed him the photo. The old man looked down, and something shifted behind his eyes. A flicker. A memory awakened. "You held on to this?" he asked, his voice gravelly over concrete. Sarah nodded. Coach Hal leaned back, exhaled slowly, and tapped the photo. "That was taken right here," he said. "Back when we had to duct tape the mirrors to the wall. Before the world knew his name." Sarah's voice caught in her throat. "So it is him?" Hal looked up. "Dwayne Johnson. The Rock. He trained here for 2 months back in '97. Passed through town. Quiet guy. Fierce as hell. Your mom, Maria, right?" She nodded again, too stunned to speak. Hal's voice softened. "They were close. Real close." The world tilted. Just slightly. Enough to make the walls feel like they weren't holding her up anymore. Sarah's fists clenched around the edges of the photograph, now trembling. "All she ever told me was, he was gone," she whispered. Hal stared at her. "She wasn't lying. He was gone. Went back to the circuit. Got signed. The next time I saw him was on pay-per-view." Sarah nodded slowly, trying to breathe. "She never told me. Not once. Not even when she got sick. Her mother passed 2 years ago. Cancer. A slow, cruel goodbye. And in all that time, not a word about the man in the photo. Not a hint of the legacy living quietly inside her bones. But now it all made sense. The body she built through pain and perseverance hadn't come from nowhere. The strength they mocked, the power they feared, it was inherited. And the photo? It was never just a keepsake. It was a breadcrumb. The only clue left behind by a mother who carried secrets in silence. That night, Sarah sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by printed articles, old videos, interviews, and timelines. She found photos of Dwayne training in the Northwest. She mapped his stops, and Maple Ridge was one of them. Everything aligned, the months, the stories, the silence. And slowly the shame she'd carried her whole life began to peel away. She wasn't broken. She was built by design, forged from grit, and born of greatness. For years they'd told her she didn't fit in, that she was too much. But now she knew. She was never meant to blend in. Her mother hadn't hidden her past out of shame. She'd done it to protect her. From what? Sarah didn't know. But deep down, she believed Maria had wanted her to find out when the time was right. And now, the time was right. She unfolded the photo once more and smoothed out the crease. This time, it didn't feel like a mystery. It felt like a mirror, and, just like that, the girl they mocked began to rise, and her next move would silence a gym, a school, and a town that once laughed too loudly. The transfer, she didn't tell anyone she was leaving. There were no goodbyes, no announcement, no locker clean-out montage. Just a quiet transfer form signed in the main office, and a final walk through the empty Maple Ridge High gym, while the echoes of mockery still haunted the walls. Sarah Nichols had learned something valuable. Strength wasn't about how much you could carry, it was about knowing when to let go. And so, she let go. By Monday morning, her name was scratched off the roster at Maple Ridge, and added to a new one across town. Northview High. Northview wasn't some glamorous elite prep school. It was just another small-town campus with aging bricks, a leaky locker room, and vending machines that only took quarters. But what made it different, what made it feel like possibility, was Coach Zoe. The first time they met, Coach Zoe didn't flinch when Sarah walked into the gym. She didn't stare, didn't smirk, didn't ask about the rumors. She looked Sarah dead in the eye and said, "I've seen what you can do. You don't have to prove anything here. But if you want to, we'll make room." That was it. No pity, no theatrics, just a clean slate. Still, the wounds hadn't healed. Sarah trained in silence, kept her head down, and stayed late after every practice, as if trying to outwork the ghosts of Maple Ridge. Her footwork was faster now. Her reactions are sharper. But beneath the muscle, she was still rebuilding something more fragile. Her trust in people, and in herself. The Northview team wasn't perfect. There were still stares, still questions. But there was also space, and eventually, respect. It was during her third week that George spotted her again. The assistant coach from Maple Ridge had apparently taken up a part-time mentoring role with the Northview staff. Something to do with coaching clinics or development programs. She didn't know the details, but when he walked into the gym, clipboard in hand, and saw Sarah warming up, he didn't say a word. Just gave her a small, knowing smile. Like he'd been waiting for her to reclaim herself. And in that moment, Sarah understood something else. Sometimes the people who support you don't need to speak. They just show up. Word of her transfer didn't take long to spread. Maple Ridge was small. Gossip traveled faster than mail. Within days, Sarah's name was on everyone's lips again, not because of drama, but because of fear. Northview had a new powerhouse. And the next match on the schedule? Northview versus Maple Ridge. A rematch. And this time, the girl they had once called She-Hulk would be wearing a different jersey. At Maple Ridge, Avery and her friends rolled their eyes. They laughed about Sarah's desperate transfer, saying she couldn't handle the heat. Peter, now sporting a fresh haircut and a forced grin, joked that she'd probably show up in a cape and tights. They could laugh all they wanted, because Sarah wasn't coming back to explain herself. She was coming back to play. Northview's gym buzzed with anticipation. Students whispered. Fans checked their phones. The match was still 2 weeks away, but the tension was building like thunder in a cloud. At practice, Coach Zoe ran the team hard, but fair. Sarah was no longer benched emotionally. She was centered, trusted, respected. She was becoming something she hadn't felt in years. Herself. Every serve felt like redemption. Every drill chipped away at the old shame. Every drop of sweat washed the memory of those TikTok comments a little further into the past. George, ever the quiet sentinel, offered small pointers in between sessions. Nothing big, just subtle adjustments. His presence reminded her that not all coaches were blind to talent or humanity. And at night, Sarah would stare at the old photograph on her desk, now framed instead of crumpled. She no longer carried it like a secret. She displayed it like a symbol. Not because she needed to prove who her father was, but because she was finally becoming who she was meant to be. And the world? It would soon remember her name, not as a joke, not as a headline, but as a threat. But before redemption, she would need revenge, and the court they once owned would become the battleground where everything would be decided. The bleachers were full before the doors officially opened. Students wore school colors like armor. Parents leaned forward in their seats, eyes darting to the court like they were watching a powder keg seconds from detonation. Tonight wasn't just the final game of the season. It was a war. Northview versus Maple Ridge. And at the center of it all, Sarah Nichols, standing tall in a different jersey than the one that had once betrayed her. This wasn't a match. It was a reckoning. In the opposing locker room, Coach Dennis straightened his tie with an arrogant flick. His plan was simple: win the game, kill the noise, and convince the school board to redirect funds from the girls' volleyball team to build a boys' program. That had been the agenda for months. Sarah's leaving just made the argument easier. Beside him, Principal Hoover smirked, arms crossed. "She was always a liability," he said. "Now she's just a problem for someone else." But what they didn't realize, what none of them understood, was that problems don't disappear when ignored. Sometimes they grow teeth. Sometimes they fight back. In the Northview locker room, Coach Zoe stood at the front, steady as stone. Her players buzzed with adrenaline, nerves curling beneath their jerseys. All eyes were on Sarah. And Sarah, she wasn't nervous. She was ready. This wasn't about proving herself anymore. That part of her journey had ended the day she framed the photo instead of hiding it. This game was about reclaiming the narrative. As the team moved out, Avery made her move. A whisper in the hallway. A shove at the water fountain. A spilled proteins shake near Sarah's bag. Even a fake rumor about her failing grades murmured just loud enough for the referees to overhear. It was all old tricks, but Sarah didn't flinch. Not anymore. She'd been humiliated on camera, mocked by the internet, and abandoned by her own boyfriend. A slippery floor or a backhanded comment wasn't going to break her now. When she stepped onto the court, the crowd fell into an unnatural hush. Every Maple Ridge student stared. Phones were already recording. "She-Hulk returns," someone muttered. But Sarah didn't hear them. Her eyes locked on the net. The whistle blew. The game began. From the first serve, the energy shifted. Northview played like a team on fire. Quick sets, clean digs, unstoppable spikes. And Sarah, she was everywhere. Flying saves, blocking shots with explosive force. She moved like a veteran, not a high school senior. Maple Ridge struggled to keep up. Avery grew frantic, barking at teammates, blaming others. Peter watched silently from the bleachers, trying not to make eye contact with the girl he'd once dated, and publicly shamed. By the second set, the scoreboard lit up. Northview 2, Maple Ridge 0, timeouts were called. Tensions rose. "Coach," Dennis yelled louder. Hoover folded his arms tighter. And still, Sarah didn't slow down. Every time she hit the ball, the gym felt it. You didn't need to understand volleyball to know who was controlling the court. The final set came down to the wire. Match point. Northview served. Maple Ridge returned. Back and forth it went. 15 seconds of chaos, sneakers squeaking, fans screaming. Then, the perfect setup. But a legacy. One she had fought for tooth and nail. Through shame. Through silence. Through sabotage. And now? She didn't need to prove anything because she was the proof. She walked across the court with her head high, her shoulders squared, not just strong but unshakable. Somewhere beyond the noise, beyond the spotlight, she knew a man was watching. Quietly, proudly, just as he had said. And even if he never stepped forward, he had seen her. And more importantly, she had seen herself. She was never too much. They were just never enough to carry her legacy. And that was the story of Sarah Nichols. The girl they bullied. The girl they mocked. The girl they called too much. But in the end, she was never too much. She was exactly enough to carry a legacy the world didn't see coming. Now it's your turn. Tell us in the comments what part of Sarah's journey hit you the hardest. Did the final twist with DJ surprise you? And what would you say to someone who feels like they're too much for the world? The best comment will be pinned. So don't hold back, share your favorite scene, quote, or message that stuck with you. Let's lift each other up the way Sarah lifted herself. If this story moved you, even for a moment, don't forget to like the video. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story like this. We've got more real stories, more redemption arcs, and more reasons to believe in the underdog, just like Sarah. Until next time, remember, sometimes the world will try to shrink you, but the right people will always celebrate your strength.